You're watching the History Fella channel, and in this video we're looking at Henry Andrew Heck Thomas. One of the most respected lawmen of the time was Henry Andrew Heck Thomas. His friends gave him the nickname of Heck because it was the only curse word he was ever heard to utter, even under the most trying of circumstances. Born on the 6th of January 1850 in Oxford, Georgia, Heck Thomas joined the Confederate Army at the age of 12 as a courier to General Stonewall Jackson. The end of the war saw the South desolated and jobs hard to find, especially for Southerners. In 1868, Heck became a city policeman in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was here, during a particularly violent riot, that he first used a gun and was injured in the process. He then took a job as an express messenger with the Texas Express Company. And it was while working for them that he came into contact with the notorious Sam Bass gang. They specialised in carrying out train robberies, and it was during one of these that Heck Thomas came up with the idea of switching any money that was being carried with fake money in the event of a hold-up. His idea came to fruition on the evening of the 18th of March 1878, when the Bass gang held up the train on which he was supervising a large amount of cash. Thomas managed to secrete the real cash and substitute it for fake money. The gang took a bag of silver dollars and the fake money and got away with just over $100. Thomas received a $200 reward from the company for saving them cash. Leaving the Express Company in 1885, Heck Thomas joined the Fort Worth Detective Agency. One of his first jobs was to join up with the Deputy U.S. Marshal Jim Taylor in an effort to track down the Lee brothers, who were wanted for murder. Information regarding the whereabouts of the brothers led Thomas and Taylor to a remote farmhouse near Dexter, Texas. Finding the place deserted, the two men decided to lie in wait for a few days, convinced that the information given to them was correct. 5 days later, the two brothers, Pink and Jim Lee, rode up, and after a brief exchange of gunfire, both outlaws were killed. The reward for the two brothers was a sizable one, which convinced Heck Thomas that the bounty hunting business seemed to be a very lucrative occupation. After his work on the Lee case, Heck Thomas was offered the post of Deputy U.S. Marshal, which he readily accepted, and it was a job he was to carry out for the next 26 years. His first job was to buy himself a pair of Colt 45 Peacemaker revolvers and a Winchester model 1886 45-90. These weapons were to be with him for the remainder of the lawman's days. In the following years, Heck Thomas was to be involved in some of the most famous arrests and gun battles of the West, including the capture of the infamous Dalton gang. Towards the end of the century, the outlaw bands had all but disappeared, and the only one left of any notoriety was Bill Doolin. Heck Thomas picked up Doolin's trail and followed him to Oklahoma, where he caught up with him at a house near Lawton. Calling on him to surrender, he was met with a refusal, and Doolin opened fire on Thomas. Heck Thomas blasted him with his 12-gauge shotgun, and the last of the Doolin gang was dead. Heck Thomas worked as a Deputy U.S. Marshal in the Oklahoma Territory after leaving Fort Smith, where he met up with Bill Tillman and Chris Madsen. In the following 3 years, they arrested more than 300 wanted men. It was said that Heck Thomas picked the most dangerous desperados to go after because of the large rewards on their heads. In 1902, Heck Thomas moved to Lawton, Oklahoma, where he was appointed chief of police, and for the next 7 years he maintained law and order there. He was wounded half a dozen times in gunfights during his career as a lawman, and in 1909 he suffered a heart attack and retired. He died on the 15th of August 1912 of Bright's disease.